When I was planning this new fuselage replacement, thinking about different ways of labeling all this stuff, and I've got a label maker. I bought a bunch of different kinds of colors of labels and sizes. I knew I wanted everything black in here, so I wanted the labels to be black with white lettering on them, and I bought a bunch of labels for that. I also bought some decals to use, and again I bought white colored lettering on the decals, and I was going to put those on. Like doing this instrument panel, I figured I would label each one of these instruments, each one of these circuit breakers and switches and whatnot with the decals or the label. And the same with other controls here. These will be the heat controls, carburetor heat, mixture, stuff like that, as well as some of the other stuff. And I got thinking about that, and all this, as much work as I put into this and everything, I decided that might be kind of tacky, and they wouldn't hold up very well. They have a tendency to fall off and get bad looking. They say the decals, if you put them on and then spray them over with clear, that they stay pretty good, but they get damp and the ink on them runs and stuff like that. So this is a pretty wet country and a good chance of getting damp around here. And when you overspray it with clear, then that puts a shiny coat on, and anyway, it doesn't look that good. So I was talking to my friend Jim, the A&P IA, that's kind of overseeing this job and helping me on it, and he knows of a place down there near the airport that does labels, that makes plaques and stuff, instrument labels. So I decided that I would do that, and it's pretty impractical for me to ship this instrument panel down there to have it done on it and have it shipped back as well, and I want some other labels anyway. So I decided I would go ahead and make some overlays on here where the instrument goes, a label overlay, and have those, and then I can paint those up and send those down and have the labels put on those, and they'll look pretty nice that way. Now this did have an overlay on the original airframe anyway from Cub Crafters. Of course, they can lay out a instrument panel and then make an overlay to go over it to fit just about any need. So that's kind of what I've decided to do. Now when I laid out this instrument panel, the template that I laid out on it, I laid out right on the instrument panel. I took this, of course we had the plastic cover on the aluminum to protect it, and then I taped over everything with masking tape, and I just laid everything right out on the masking tape. So the template was pretty much destroyed when we finished up with the instrument panel and got ready to paint this and tore all that off. Where I have the template from the original instrument panel I made, I still have it in cardboard, but I changed some things on this one to fit my needs a little bit better. I lined up these magneto switches out of line with the rest of the switches so you don't accidentally flip those when you're pulling them, and change the lineup of some things, the master switch and the starter and some other things, and of course the carburetor heat mixture, that stuff there is all going to be here instead of on individual pylons mounted underneath. So anyway, I had to lay out a template for this overlay, and I tried measuring it all out on a piece of cardstock. It's just a piece of poster board, and I tried laying it out all out on it first, and I come pretty darn close, but not close enough. Taking the measurements off there, it didn't quite work. So what I did here is I took the nuts off of all these. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to take all these out and undo all this wiring and everything. But what I did is I just took the nuts, the mount nuts and washers off of these, and pushed all those circuit breakers and switches out the back. And then I held up this piece of aluminum. This is a piece of 25 thousandths 2024. And I just held that up there, taped it up on there, and then reached through the back with a grease pencil, and marked out all these holes, and then I took them down to the drill press and drilled them out with a step drill, and that fits up pretty good, and that'll be pretty nice. So I'll finish trimming this up, round over the edges and stuff on it, trim it up a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and powder coat it. And this is not a total loss. You know, I spent some time laying this out, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mark on here how I want the labels laid out on this, so I can include this with that, and I can have all the markings on this piece of cardboard that I want laid out on this. And then I'll do the same thing with this side over here. I'll make an overlay for this, for the mixture, carburetor heat, cabin heat, defroster, backseat heat, all that. And I think I'll have a couple other plates made up for some of the other things. I might do that for the fuel gauges, and then there are some other things on there that we want plates for. There's a tag that goes on for the water rudders. You need the water rudders retracted for takeoff and landing, and fuel selector valve on both for takeoff, and for some of the other airframe limitations. And send those off and have them printed up in a professional shop, and they should look pretty nice then. I think I've got all my placards made for my limitations. Of course, this one looked at before, that's going to be labels for the switches and the circuit breakers and stuff. You got this one over here on the far side, that labels the master switch. One up here on the top, this is for the light indicator light for when the fuel pump is on, and this is a switch here that switches between the marine radio and the aircraft radio for transmitting for the microphones. This one right here, we've got this hour meter in here that operates, well, it operates off electricity, but it has a switch in there that switches it on when at 20 miles an hour, so it only operates when in flying mode. And we've got a label underneath it that says that if this hour meter fails, we go to the recording tachometer to record the time. I'm going to have labels for the heat controls and the mixture control. This is a checklist here, and then this will be the limitations, airframe limitations. Basically said you can't fly, it has to be flown in normal category. These will be held in with the nuts and the in the control cables. These will be held in with the nuts and stuff that are on the switches and the circuit breakers. Same with this one up here and the master switch. This one I've got punched out for a number 4 screw, and then these two will be punched out for number 4 screws. And I'm not sure where I'm going to put these yet. This looks like a good spot, but I may put them up on the wing root or something like that too. I don't know yet, or even on the side panel. I'll get those cleaned up and powder coated, and we'll get them sent off to the label maker. I had these cover panels all done and cleaned up real nice, and I went and powder coated them. I didn't like the way they turned out with the powder coat. I kind of rushed it a little bit and didn't have the right room for them, and the bigger ones I didn't get a nice even spray on them. There was places it was pretty thin and other places it was pretty thick, and then it wound up with just some spatter on it, some lumps and stuff. This is thin sheet metal, and it doesn't work very good. That powder coating, you got to use some kind of mechanical means or something to get it off. I guess you can burn it off, but this aluminum is pretty thin. I had various thicknesses of aluminum depending on which one I had, and anyway, you don't want to go stick it in the bead blaster, the sandblast cabinet. That would just ruin the pieces, and just about anything you did to them would ruin them. And I could sand them down a little bit and try to powder coat over them, and that never turns out quite as well as you'd hope. And so anyway, I went ahead and made up some new panels, and I changed them a little bit. They made them a little bit bigger than what they were, just to make them easier to measure out on the sheet of metal that I had. Made them more even dimension, and they're pretty close to the same thing. They're just a little bit bigger. This one here, underneath the hour meter, that one turned out okay. I could have used it, but I decided to make it a little bigger so I can run a couple more lines on it. I had it set up so where it said if hour meter fails, use tack time, and this one's got enough room. I can put if hour meter fails, use tack time for airframe and engine maintenance, which is more correct. So I made the starter one just a little bit bigger, or the master switch one just a little bit bigger. It matches up a little more with that cover over the starter. This one is a little bit bigger. This is for the controls. Again, not much. These two, just a little change in size, but not enough. Well, this one's exactly the same size as the other one was, but there's not enough change in those to make a difference. So I'll go ahead and try to get those powder coated tomorrow. It's getting late today and it's 5 degrees out, so anyway, I don't want to do it today. Not that it's going to warm up that much tomorrow, but I'll get that done tomorrow. I did get this side panel done here. This will be where the water rudder hanger mounts on right here. I'll make a hanger to mount these two nut plates back here. This is all secured onto that piece there, so that's good. That one turned out okay.